Hello, everyone, and welcome to another edition of the GGB Supplier Showcase. As always, I am your host, Jess Marquez, and I'm so pleased to be joined again by a familiar face. Viewers and readers of this space will be familiar with Julia Carcamo, President and Chief Brand Strategist, for J. Carcamo Associates. How are you doing today, Julia?
I'm good. How are you doing?
Doing great, thanks. Back from New York last week for the first time, so fresh and recharged and ready to go. Had some travel hiccups, but no show would be complete without those, right?
No trip would be complete without those.
Sure. Um, so it's actually been, I was surprised. I went back and looked, and it's actually been about 6 months since we last spoke. We're almost halfway through 2024, which is feels pretty
Mhm.
crazy. I don't know about you. So kind of, what's been some highlights since then? How's the year gone so far? Kind of what have been some of the hits?
Well, we had our event for Casino Market Camp in March. That's always kind of the highlight for the year for me. We do a lot of work to lead up to it, and we had, as always, some new faces and some faces that we always recognize. The feedback we've gotten has been really great. I mean, it really made my heart just go pitter pat, some of the comments that we got back from the properties. And then IGA, back to the Indian Gaming Association trade show, was a really good event for had a chance to meet up with a couple of new people, and a great conversation around internal brand ambassadors and really getting your employees behind your brand, which is kind of the drum that I beat all the time anyway. So
Definitely. And I speaking of, I got that talking about, show travel. That was the easiest show that I've ever done so far with travel. It was just about 40 minutes down the road for me, so that was good.
yeah.
Um, so you mentioned the boot camp series, and I'll start with that. I'll get right into that. So obviously, in addition, for those not familiar, in addition to your work at the firm, you are the founder of the Casino Marketing Bootcamp series, which you've been doing for a number of years now. Um, so you just obviously said the main one was in New Orleans, which was back in mid-March. Um, so you've also expanded this series into kind of the various regions around the
Yeah.
country, including Northwest, West Coast slash Southwest, Midwest. What was your idea for kind of? We'll first start out with kind of what was the idea for originally regionalizing these services, and kind of what can participants expect for those shows?
So originally, I'll be very honest
Sure.
because I'm a business person. The idea was, how could I replicate this and do this again? Because one of the 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 good things, but also kind of a drawback, is that Casino Marketing Bootcamp is designed to be a small group, 20, 30, maybe 35 to 50 people, but that's it. And so I tried to think, how could I get more people exposure to boot camp? And then it made me realize also that the one that we do in New Orleans is 3 days, and we try to approximate a 360 view of casino marketing. So what we decided to do with the regionals was make them a little bit more familiar for them. We kind of look in the region and say, what are the things that are challenging them? What's a common theme? What's happening? When we went into the Northwest the first time, they were just getting sports betting. So we dedicated kind of, a half a day that was all about lessons learned in other jurisdictions about sports betting, which was a great conversation. Um, and then when we went into the Midwest, that actually was a different idea because Mary Lofness, who's one of our casino marketing bootcamp coaches and a good friend and mentor of mine, said, why don't you do one where you build a marketing plan? Because so many properties need help just kind of building out a marketing plan. So that's kind of what we do in the Midwest. So they're a little different, and they're try to be a little bit more relevant to the market, and also try to make the expense flying into New Orleans is not the easiest thing for a lot of the properties around the country, but driving to a local market is a lot easier, and they're away from the property a little less, so it makes it a little bit more appealing to general managers.
Well, I think that's such a good point, and you spoke to the expansion of sports betting and other gaming, around the
Mm-hmm.
country, which is something that a lot of those markets may not have experienced so far, or may not have the right, the right amount of experience, say, as like the West and the South, especially obviously being in Louisiana. So I think that's definitely, right, goes right on track with the development of gaming overall. Um, so you've been doing this series for a number of years now, and I'm kind of curious, just like generally speaking, how has the process kind of changed over that time? Kind of what are some of the things that you picked up, or kind of how has the experience changed for the participants? I'm really curious to hear about that.
You know, we always wanted to get input from general managers in particular, from senior marketers, kind of like what are the skills your team needs to develop and needs to work on. So we've always kind of done that. Now, one of the things that happened between the second and the third year was a pandemic. So between the second and the fourth year, I'm going to say, we actually took our sessions and made them longer. So, we started with the traditional 1 hour session, 10-minute break kind of process. And the feedback that I got was, I wish I had had more time with this topic. And so we've expanded our sessions. And this is why we went to a 3-day in New Orleans, because we've expanded them to 90 minutes or 2 hours, sort of depending on the topic. And that allows us to do things that are a little bit more of a bigger concept, right? So this year we had the folks from Lean Revisions come in and they did a session on Lean Six Sigma thinking processes, which is a big topic and not something you typically associate with casino marketing. But it was probably one of our best received sessions. They kind of had this moment where it was a little, I don't get it kind of moment, and then it just sort of clicked. And the interactive projects that were part of the expansion to 90 minutes was including interactive pieces for each session.
Well, it's fascinating, and I would imagine that in a sector such as that, or like an experience such as that, like word of mouth travels really fast, right? So like once the ball starts getting rolling, and you have a good year and another good year, that people share their experience and how much they learned, and obviously those results, the casinos see those results as well, and it kind of just goes from there, I would imagine. Um, as far as I don't know exactly how to describe it, but like the talent side, or I guess the people that you bring in to help
Mhm.
teach these seminars. Kind of how has that gone? Have you seen like who have I don't mean like specific names, but like what kind of people have you gravitated towards to kind of help you with these sessions?
It's varied, right?
Sure.
So there are some people that I automatically knew because I speak I speak at sessions, at conferences. And so I get to know some. I listen to them. I kind of think about like their approach and how they're positioning things. So part of them are people that I've had relationships with, um, met on kind of that circuit. Others have come to me and they've actually suggested topics, and now we have a page on the website that's for, session of topics. So speakers will, and they'll tell us what they want to accomplish and what the lessons are going to be. And then we, have a discussion with them to see how it fits, because it's a little bit more of responsibility on their part than, not to say anything about the sessions that we already have at conferences, but it's a little bit more responsibility because we do a pre-arrival assignment. So they're responsible for coming up with a pre-arrival assignment. They're responsible for coming up with an exercise or two that will happen during their session. So it's a little bit more than just putting together, your part of a panel presentation.
Sure, sure. And I imagine obviously that goes back to the, improving the experience overall, right? Because I think
Yeah.
we've all sat, like you said, we've all sat in shows and we've all sat in panels where it's pretty uninvolved or uninteresting or maybe both, you know what I mean? So I think
Yeah.
improving that experience can go a long way, and definitely, both for you and for the participants.
And
Go ahead.
that our coaches that are attracted to us are looking to educate more than sell. So it's a little bit of a different mindset. And frankly, some people have suggested topics and have submitted topics and they haven't been selected because they're looking for an education environment. And I have that discussion with them, and I absolutely respect their decision to not move forward in that way, because I want to make sure that our attendees get the value. I also want to make sure that our coaches are looked at as real thought leaders in the industry as well.
And I think, and I would assume that's kind of one of the benefits of having such a tailored show, or such a niche a niche experience where like the people who are involved or the people who are passionate about it care very much about wanting to kind of bolster the next generation and kind of pass down those skills as well. I would have to imagine. Um,
One
so
of the things that I have noticed about our coaches that, again, goes to the fact that they want to educate and help people be better is that they never sit still during other people's topics. They help the groups. They walk around when they break up into exercise groups, they'll go around to each little pod and help them out, even if it's not their area, which is just always great to see. So they actually have a lot more interaction than just their one session.
sure, sure. So for anyone who's obviously listening to this who may be interested, could you kind of give a? I mean, I'm sure there's some dates, floating around, but like, what exactly is the schedule for the rest of the year for those who might be interested?
So Midwest is going to happen in September. That's September 11th and 12th. And then we actually have not announced it. So first time I'm saying this publicly, but we're adding a 1 day kind of intensive boot camp on the front end on the 10th for in-house graphic designers to really kind of help them explore new technologies, new approaches. So we're going to put that as part of the Midwest journey. And then in November, the 13th and 14th, we're going to be at Tachi Palace, and that's the West Coast version. And then the 19th and 20th will be at Northern Quest for the West Boot Camp.
Awesome. Well, that's a busy schedule. I'm sure that there's an untold amount of work that goes into making sure everything runs smoothly. So I hope that the participants get as much out of it as you put into it, which is, I'm sure, a lot. So one other topic that I kind of wanted to talk to you about today, and this is kind of more towards like your firm, J. Carcamo Associates, is the fractional services that you guys offer. So that includes both marketing and creative services. So as a starter, could you kind of just give an overview as to kind of like how these setups work just generally, and then we'll go into both specifically. But first, like starting out, like how exactly does those setups work?
So the idea of doing fractional service really came to us because we get requests periodically. We're not a traditional agency. We work on project basis. But we've got requests to help a property, with a part of their marketing plan, say like the advertising and media piece of their marketing plan, or create an entire marketing plan, or help them build out a promotional calendar for the next 90 days. And so what I wanted to do was put this under an umbrella of a service. And so the whole idea is that it is really meant to help your existing property. We've got some properties that are lacking a marketing director, but they're, undergoing a search for the talent. And so we can come in and help in the meantime. We can even help you interview for that position. Sometimes we'll go in and identify training resources for the existing team because we always want to grow from within. I mean, it's not that we want to replace what you have, but we just want to be able to like augment what you have. And then the fractional creative director, we're actually working with a couple of properties right now on that. In both cases, they have in-house designers that are not either casino experienced or maybe just not getting it perfectly right now. They've got talent. And what occurred to me as we got this request was that there are a lot of properties who have forgone an agency relationship, the traditional agency relationship, for a lot of reasons. And when I tell you, I have had great agency relationships, agencies that I would work with like that again. So it's not really a matter of agencies are expensive. Sometimes we just don't manage that process well with them. And so they feel expensive. And then what happens is that when you come time to have to reduce budgets, somebody looks at that and says, we're paying 4 or 5 digits a month to this agency. And somebody says, let's just get a graphic designer and a Mac and put them in that queue, which works until it doesn't. Because what you're missing not having that agency is a lot of talent that brings exposure to other industries, exposures to, new design techniques, a director that takes the brand and the reason graphics and connects it to the graphic. So it's not just a design alone, but it has some business sense to it. And so that's what we come in and do. It's not really to replace your designer. It's to help your design, your in-house design, be better and more along the lines of what you want from your strategy, giving them the opportunity to grow and get new learnings under their belts. And so, we go in for a few months and work with a designer. Usually it's about a 6-month process that we try to really kind of stay in there and get into the flow of things. Sometimes we look at the process, sometimes it's not designer. Sometimes it's just a matter of how a project gets communicated from the person who needs the project to the person who's designing the project.
Sure, sure. And I think, I think that's it's such a valuable resource because I think a lot of people maybe who are not as familiar with the industry may think of like the casino industry as all being, the Las Vegases of the world and the Atlantic cities of the world who are these big, gigantic operations with so many resources. But in reality, across the country, and as we talked earlier about the expansion of gaming, so many of these casinos are in smaller markets. They may not have, they may just be starting out. They may, especially if it's like a tribal outfit, they may just kind of be starting this for the first time. They may not have those kind of do's and don'ts yet. And I would imagine that a resource like that would be extremely valuable. The creative services side of it is interesting to me because is that relatively new or like how when exactly did that kind of come into the fold? Because I think that's interesting in addition to your other services.
We actually started working on the content at the end of last year, and then kind of rolled it out at the beginning of this year and said, here's a service we have. And like I said, we've gotten a couple of properties that have reached out to us and needed help with the design. And then what we said is, why don't you let us help your designer rather than, as I always tell people, I'm happy to take over your design. But that's not our goal. We want to be partners, right? We don't want to be just a vendor that's working on a project. We want to help these marketing teams be greater marketing teams than what they are right now. So that's our goal. And that was always our goal with our agency part, the consultancy part. And that's why Casino Marketing Bootcamp seems such a natural fit, because it really is about growing those skills and making casino marketers better.
Sure. Well, Julia, this has been great as always. I can't wait until the next time we talk to hear more about how these things are going. Please tell people out there who are interested or might be interested in contacting you where they can find you and kind of what you got going.
Well, a lot of people can see me on LinkedIn, so I'm on LinkedIn. But you can also find us at carcamoassociates.com and casinomarketingbootcamp.com. You've got a question, we probably have an answer for you.
Thank you for joining us for the GGB Gaming Supplier Showcase, our exclusive look at the best products and services produced by vendors for the gaming, iGaming, and sports betting industries. For more information about the GGB Supplier Showcase, contact Terry Brady at tbrady@ggbmagazine.com.